we're going to study this application of this formula of hydrostatic force in hydrostatic force on planes, both for horizontal surface as well as for vertical surface, and as well as for inclined surface. These are the few problems we'll do. But before that, there is a term we can see that this igyyy is in the formula inclined plane, and igyyy is in this. So we need to know some standard results for different kinds of standard results for igyyy. So we'll first study that and then move to these questions, so that our whole concept is clear. So let us just say that if this is the line, this is the water surface line, and I have a say a surface below this. Let us just make if I look it from front view, then it looks like this. Inside view it can look like anything like this. Inside view it can look like maybe okay. Let us first make this. Let us make this closer to the surface, means coinciding with the surface. Let's see what happens then. Okay. When we look it from the side, let us look it from the side. If I look it from here, my eyes are here, then it might look like a rectangle, right? It might look like a inverted triangle, right? It might look like a straight triangle. Fair enough. It might look like a circle. It might look like a semicircle, or it might look like a trapezium. Okay. So what we have to do now is just to know that if this distance is p, this distance is h. Sorry. So if this distance is b, this distance is d, then some of the things that we need in the formula is the center of gravity distance. So if this is the CG, then this is h bar, right? What will be h bar? What will be the area of this thing is a into d. What will be the center of gravity distance? It will be d by 2. And if I consider this as the YY line, so what will be that? So IGYY will be IGYY will be BD cube by 12, right? Similarly for this, if the CG is somewhere here, this is B, and this whole distance is D, then center of gravity h bar distance will be, area is BD by 2, center of gravity will be D by 3, right? And IGYY will be BD cube by 36. This is the IGYY. Here center of gravity will be here. Again area is BD by 2. This is B, this is B, and this is D. Okay, so BD by 2, h bar will be 2 by 3 of D, and IGYY will be b d cube by 36. No change in this. If this is the radius r, okay, this is a circle of radius r, then area is, we know, pi r square. What will be h bar? This is the CG, so this is h bar. H bar will be what? H bar will be equal to r, and Ig, this, and Igy will be pi r to the power 4 by 4. If this is a trapezium of one side length A and other side length B, and center of gravity will be somewhere here, so this will be h bar. Area of trapezium is half into sum of parallel sides into the distance between the parallel side. If distance between parallel side is d, then d. Okay, what will be the h bar? H bar will be a plus 2b divided by a plus b d by 3. And what will be Ig yy? It will be a square plus b square plus 4ab divided by what? A plus b whole into d cube by 36. So this is some standard results that you have to remember before doing any questions. So typically this will come, but you should also be prepared for other kind of structures also. So let us start with the first problem. Let me select this and we'll try to do this problem. So just a minute. So the first question is, this is our first question. So first question is simple. I'll try to be elaborate. So a rectangular plane, they have said a rectangular plane which is 2 meter wide and 3 meter deep. So first I will make the rectangular plane. This is the rectangular plane. It is 2 meter wide and 3 meter deep. Okay, simple. It lies in the vertical plane of water. Means that if there is a water level, then this rectangular plane is inside the water in a vertical plane. Means it's not inclined like this, it's not horizontal like this, it's vertical like this. This is what we need. Okay, the total pressure, they are asking the total pressure and the position of the center of pressure on the plane surface when its upper edge is horizontal. This edge is horizontal and coincide with the, so first in the A part, this particular rectangle is like this, means upper edge is coinciding with the water surface. So this is the typical arrangement. If you look it from front, it will look like this. If you look it from side view, it will look like this. Okay, so I have drawn both the views. Something you shouldn't confuse here is, what does total pressure means? Total pressure is actually the total force on the plate. Okay, on the plane. So we already know that total force on the vertical plane, total force, I will not write total force because they have asked me for total pressure. I will give you total pressure equation. We already know that F is equal to what? Rho G H bar into area. Okay, so they have said that this whole system is in water. So rho we know, rho water we know. Okay, so I'll just put it in here. So 10 to the power 3 kg per meter cube. I will not be writing units in every question. So this first question you can see meter per second square. H bar, what is H bar? H bar is the center of gravity distance, right? As we have already discussed, so this is the center of gravity. H bar will be how much? It will be 3 by 2, that is 1.5 meter. 1.5 meter. And what will be the area? Area, you can see 2 into 3, that is 6 meter square. 6 meter square. So when you calculate it, it will come out to be 88290 Newton. Now we have to calculate. Of course, we already know that this force will not be acting on the center of gravity. It will be acting on center of pressure. So we have to calculate the depth of center of pressure. Depth of center of pressure, that is HCP. HCP was H bar IGYY divided by H bar into A. So first in the side we will calculate our things. So H bar is 3 by 2, that is 1.5. okay, since H bar, this is H bar, right? This top surface is coinciding, the plane top surface is coinciding with the water level top surface. That is why H bar is 0.5. In the next part of the question we will see that H bar changes. So okay, area is again 2 into 3, that is 6 meter square. IGYY will be what? We have already seen the formula. It will be 2 into 3 cube divided by 2 into 3 cube divided by what? 12. That will be 4.5 meter to the power 4. Now you just have to put it in this formula, all the details. That is HCP is equal to H bar is 1.5 and IGYY is 4.5, then 6 into 1.5. This will give us 2 meter, not 20, 2 meter. Okay, so this distance HCP, this HCP distance is 2.0 meter. Now our next question was what? First question was, it coincides with the water surface. This particular rectangle was coinciding with the water surface. Now the upper edge of the surface is 2.5 meter below the free water level. So now the diagram, so this is a simple diagram. I'll just make sure the simple diagram that this whole arrangement is 2.5 meter below the, so this is 2.5, and we know that the, okay, it's not matching, so this is 2.5, this is 2.5. We already know that the depth of the rectangle is 3 meters. If you look it from the side view will be like this, right? This is 2 meter and this is 3 meter. Now if I ask you what is the distance of H bar, so you will say this is the distance of H bar, right? This is the center of gravity. So H bar will be what? H bar will be 2.5 plus half of 3, right? So this will give you 4 meters. Now we can directly calculate the pressure, total pressure. Although we are writing total pressure, it means the total pressure, total force, total pressure on the plane. Again use the same formula, F is equal to rho G H into H bar into A. Rho is 10 to the power 3, G is 9.81, H is how much? H is now H is different, and area is 2 into 3, that is 6. So this will come out to be 235,440 Newton, and depth of center of pressure, which means that on which the force is being applied, HCP will be H bar IGYY divided by, here sine square theta is equal to 0 because theta is 90 degrees, so I'm as a whole I'm not using that. So 4 plus IGYY will be the same that we have calculated, that is 4.5. So 4.5, area is 6, and again the H bar is 4. So this will come out to be 4.1875. This is the question answer for the first question. So part A and part B has been solved. Let us move to the second question. See, I can give you the diagrams also for the questions, but generally if we should see the questions as a whole. So here they have said that there is a circular opening. There is a circular opening of 3 meter diameter in the vertical side of a tank. So I'll just draw a tank, and I just will say this is the opening. If this is the opening, there is a circle. If you see it from the side view, it will look like this, but if you see front view, it will look like this, but from the side it will look like this. There is a circle of what diameter? How much diameter? 3 meter. Okay, which can close by a disc. This hole was closed by a disc, okay, of diameter, which can rotate about its horizontal direction. There was a pin here, so this circular disc can rotate like this. Okay, it can rotate about this axis. They are saying that okay, I have pinned it here, and if there is water inside, this disc can rotate like this. Okay, so first we will calculate. We will not make the question complicated. We will just calculate the what force on the disc. Okay, actually here force on the disc and torque required to maintain the disc is in equilibrium. बोलने का चाह रहा है ये बोलना चाह रहा है कि ये डिस्क इस पॉइंट के अबाउट रोटेट तो कर सकता है, लेकिन इस पर कोई फोर्स लग रहा है. ऑब्वियसली ये वर्टिकल है तो यहाँ पे एक फोर्स लग रहा है, इसके वजह से ये पॉइंट के अबाउट रोटेट करना चाहेगा. लेकिन उसने सेकेंड पार्ट में बोला है कि ये पॉइंट रोटेट ना करे, इसके वजह से हम लोगों को कितना उल्टा साइड से ये लगाना पड़ेगा, टॉर्क लगाना पड़ेगा. टॉर्क इज़ व्हाट? फोर्स इनटू लेवर आर्म. दिस इज टॉर्क. ओके, सो पहले तो फोर्स निकालते हैं. ओके, इसी को थोड़ा बड़ा करके बनाते हैं सो दैट हम लोगों को अच्छे से समझ में आए. सो इसको ही थोड़ा बड़ा कर लेते हैं. अगर इसको हम लोग थोड़ा बड़ा करते हैं लाइक दिस, तो अभी देखते हैं. और बोला है कि ना ऑल्सो हेड ऑफ द वाटर, ही हैज़ ऑल्सो सेड दैट हेड ऑफ द वाटर इज़ 4 मीटर above the horizontal diameter. Horizontal diameter means this portion के about कितना है? 4 मीटर है. This distance is 4 मीटर. अगर if we see, this is the center of gravity, right? This is the center of gravity. So this distance will be what? H bar. We already know that. So force will be how much? Horizontal diameter ये है, right? This is 3 meters. So first we need know that diameter is 3 meter. Okay, area is pi by 4 d to the power d square. Pi by 4 d square is 3 square, which is equal to 7.0685 meter square. Okay, H bar is how much? H bar is 4 meter. They have directly given it in the question. So force will be what? Force will be rho g h bar into area. Rho is 10 to the power 3, 9.81. Everything is in SI units, so 7.0685. And then we have area is 7.0685 and h is 4 meters. Okay, so this will come out to be 277,368 Newton or 277,368 kilonewton. Okay, we are done with. And since this is a vertical plane, we know that the total force will not be acting on the center of gravity. जो force आ रहा है वो center of gravity पे नहीं लगेगा, वो center of pressure पे लगेगा. तो ये center of pressure का distance हमें निकालना पड़ेगा. तो center of pressure HCP. Let us calculate HCP. HCP will be what? H bar plus IG YY sine square theta. Theta is how much? Theta is 90 degrees. So sine square theta is 1 divided by H bar into A. Generally IGYY कितना होता है? For circle we know r to pi r to the power 4 divided by 4 is, if this we convert if this thing we convert it into diameter, then it will be pi d to the power 4 divided by, let us check once, pi r to the power 4 divided by 4. Okay, so pi d to the power 4 divided by 64, right? 2 to the power 4 is 32. Okay, 2 to the power 2, 16. Okay, so this is all good. So now we can calculate directly. Pi d is how much? D is 3 to the power 4 divided by 64. So the overall value is Ig axis is, it will be coming out, let us not use this, let us not calculate it fully, we will see what happens. So h bar we know is 4 meters. Ig yy is pi d to the power 4 divided by 64, and h bar is again 1, and area is pi d square divided by 4. So that's why I have not calculated it here, because pi d to the power 4 here, it will come out to be d square. Okay, this 4 will cancel. So 4 plus d square means 33 square divided by how much? 64, right? 64. So eventually it will come out to be 4.14 meter. So this distance is 4.14 meter. So now let us just make the diagram for the, we said that about this whole circular plate is rotating, and force was acting where? Force was acting here in the center of pressure region. This is at a distance 4.14. This center hinge is at a distance 4 meters, right? So torque generated will be how much? Torque will be generated, since it is rotating about this point, torque generated will be force into lever arm. Lever arm will be distance, will be this distance, lever arm. So it will be 4.14 minus 4. Force came out to be 2. Okay, force was 277,368 into 0.14. This will come out to be 38831 Newton meter. So this is the equilibrium, this is the torque. So if this is the torque given by the water, from this side we will have to give another torque, which is the equilibrium torque, to maintain the disc in equilibrium. इस साइड से जितना वाटर पुश करेगा, घुमाने की कोशिश करेगा, उस साइड से उतना ही हम लोगों को उल्टा में देना पड़ेगा. सो इक्विलिब्रियम टॉर्क रिक्वायर्ड विल बी इसका ही उल्टा साइड. इक्विलिब्रियम टॉर्क रिक्वायर्ड टू कीप द डिस्क इन इक्विलिब्रियम इज कितना 38831 न्यूटन. Okay, one more question we'll do for inclined plane. So an inclined rectangular sluice gate AB, there is a sluice gate, एक गेट है ये वाला AB, this is a gate. Okay, AB, this is a rectangular gate. So आपका फ्रंट व्यू अगर ऐसा है, सो साइड व्यू में आपको ऐसा दिखता है. You can see this like this. Okay, so this is how much. Again from the derivation we can remember, जैसे ऐसे ही हमने derive किया था, right? This was what axis? Y axis. This is Y, same है. So this is center of gravity. अगर ये center of gravity है तो ये भी center of gravity है, right? So if this is h bar, this is how much? This distance is how much? Y bar. Okay, and if force due to the water here, हम लोग we are only concerned about the sluice gate. ये ए बी पोर्शन का एरिया में हम लोग कंसर्न है. सो सिर्फ इस स्लूइस गेट पे जो फोर्स लग रहा है उस पर हम लोग कंसर्न है. और ये लग रहेगा कहाँ पे? सी पी पे लगेगा. सी पी, सेंटर ऑफ प्रेशर. अगर ये एफ है, ओके, इसका सेंटर ऑफ प्रेशर अगर इधर खींच के लाए तो दिखेगा ऐसा, सी पी. अभी लेट अस ट्राई टू सॉल्व दिस. सॉल्व करने के लिए वी first have to calculate h bar. h bar क्या होगा? So first of all some things are given, some things are not given. So one more thing was given here was this distance, the distance of B, B from the top level was 5 meters. So we need h bar. So 5 में से कुछ कम करने से h bar आ जाएगा. क्या कम करना पड़ेगा? ये पार्ट, दिस पार्ट कैसे निकलेगा? चलिए इसको थोड़ा एक्सप्लेन करने के लिए इसको थोड़ा बड़ा करके बनाते हैं, सो दैट हम लोगों को समझ में आए. बाकी सब आप भूल जाइए, आप जो भी एक्स्ट्रा चीज़ है उसको हटा देते हैं. Let us make it like we did in. This is a sluice gate. This is at a distance 45 degree. In the question it is given that total distance of B from the surface is 5 meters. We have a center of gravity. If you look it from side, it looks like this, right? Okay, this is the center of gravity. We need h bar. Our formula for force is how much? Rho g h bar into area. Area is simple. If this is 5 meters of this and this is 1.2 meters, then area is simple. Area is 1.2 into 5 meters. So 6 meters square. Okay. But for calculating this formula we need to have h bar. In the question the depth of the point B is given as 5 meter. If we remove this part, कौन सा वाला पार्ट? ये वाला पार्ट अगर 5 मीटर से हटा दें तो हम लोग को h bar मिल जाएगा, राइट? ये वाला पार्ट कैसे निकालेंगे? सो दिस डिस्टेंस इज हाउ मच? यहाँ पे आइए, दिस डिस्टेंस इज हाफ ऑफ 0.2. सो ये डिस्टेंस कितना हो गया? 0.6. ये एंगल कितना है? 45 डिग्री. सो लेट अस ब्रिंग आउट दिस ट्राइंगल. This triangle, if we bring out, this is 45 degree, this is 0.6. We need this. this is 45 degree. So this question mark will be what? Question mark will be 0.6 of 45 degree, sine of 45 degree, 0.6 of sine of 45 degree, which will be 0.6 divided by √2. ओके, सो हम लोगों का h बार क्या आ जाएगा? h बार विल बी व्हाट? h बार विल बी 5 माइनस 0.6 ऑफ √2. मैंने क्या बोला था? 5 में से ये पार्ट हटा देने से आपका h बार का वैल्यू आ जाएगा. सो दैट इज़ व्हाट आई एम डूइंग. सो 4.576 meter. h bar is easy, so now we can calculate the force acting on the total pressure acting on sluice gate. F अगर पकड़े, so F will be rho g h bar into area. Rho is 10 to the power 3, 9.81. H bar is 4.576, and then area is again this is 6. This will come out to be 269343 Newton. Okay. Let us now again calculate the फिर से बनाना पड़ेगा. सो सेंटर ऑफ प्रेशर HCP निकालना है. h बार प्लस IGYY साइन स्क्वायर ऑफ 45 डिग्री. कहाँ से आया 45 डिग्री? एवरीवन नोज. h बार इंटू एरिया. वी ओनली नीड IG क्या चाहिए आपको? IGYY चाहिए, राइट? IGYY अगेन रेक्टेंगल है, ये IGYY होगा, राइट? सो फ्रॉम सेंटर ऑफ ग्रेविटी, सो रेक्टेंगल है, सो IGYY विल बी व्हाट? IGYY विल बी हाउ मच? d cube by 12. If I calculate it, it will be 5 into 1.2 cube divided by 12. That is 0.72 meters. Meter to the power 4, I guess. 0.72 meter to the power 4. Okay. So this is what we are getting, and now we can directly solve this. So h bar we have already calculated. H bar is how much? H bar is 4.576. IGYY is 0.72 into sine square 45 degree, that is 1 by √2 whole square divided by h bar is 4.576 into area is how much? Area is again 6 meter square, so 6 we have calculated, and this comes out to be 4.589. okay. फिर से we need to visualize it, what is happening. अब फिर से वो वाला डायग्राम बनाते हैं जो क्वेश्चन में दिया था, राइट? सो देयर वाज अ वॉल. दिस इज़ द रिप्रेजेंटेशन ऑफ अ वॉल. इसके बीच में एक स्लुइस गेट था, रेक्टेंगुलर स्लुइस गेट. ओके, रेक्टेंगुलर स्लुइस गेट था जो दिखने में ऐसा था, ठीक है? इसको साइड से देखेंगे तो साइड का एक्सिस YY. सेंटर ऑफ ग्रेविटी यहाँ पे था. सेंटर ऑफ प्रेशर CP, सेंटर ऑफ प्रेशर यहाँ पे है, राइट? एंड सेंटर ऑफ ग्रेविटी यहाँ पे है. दिस डिस्टेंस वी नो नाउ, HCP. This distance is how much? This distance is 4.589. 4.589. That is HCP. ठीक है? This is 45 degree. आपको बोला गया था कि A पे हिंज है, ओके, एंड B, एंड टोटल फोर्स एक्टिंग ऑन दिस सेंटर ऑफ प्रेशर इज़ हाउ मच? वो भी कैलकुलेट हो गया है. 269,343 Newton. Okay. Abhi there was one part of the question that said, okay, control the discharge. The end A is hinged. Determine the force normal to the gate applied at B to open it. अब देखिए, ये गेट पे ऑलरेडी एक फोर्स है, एक फोर्स हम लोगों को निकालना है, दिस फोर्स इज़ द रिक्वायर्ड फोर्स लिखते हैं। अभी इसको खोलने के लिए, इस गेट को खोलने के लिए, गेट खुलेगा किस तरफ, इस तरफ ऐसे करके। तो इस गेट को खोलने के लिए आपको इस साइड से ये F कितना निकालना पड़ेगा। देखिए दोनों फोर्स, दिस टू फोर्सेस आर नॉट एक्टिंग ऑन द सेम पॉइंट, वन इज़ एक्टिंग ऑन B एंड अदर इज़ एक्टिंग ऑन CP, ठीक है। और एक पॉइंट है हम लोग का A जो कि हिंज है, क्या है, हिंज है। सो इफ़ आई वांट टू ओपन दिस गेट, ये गेट को अगर हमको खोलना है तो B पे कितना फोर्स लगना चाहिए। सिंपल है, अगर मैं मोमेंट अबाउट A 0 कर दूँ, मतलब दिस साइड से, इस साइड से B से जितना मोमेंट ऐसे घूम के जाएगा और इस साइड से हम लोगों का जो वाटर से जितना मोमेंट इक्वल हो जाएगा, इक्वल होने के साथ साथ क्या होगा, यहाँ पे अगर माइन्यूटली भी बढ़ जाए तो ये गेट खुल जाएगा। ओके, सो मोमेंट अबाउट A 0 करना है। सो मोमेंट अबाउट ए, मोमेंट क्या होता है, फोर्स इनटू परपेंडिकुलर डिस्टेंस। सो फोर्स तो दोनों है, ये निकालना है हमें चाहिए अब क्या, हमें चाहिए क्या, इन लोगों का परपेंडिकुलर डिस्टेंस, ये वाला डिस्टेंस चाहिए और ये वाला डिस्टेंस चाहिए, राइट। ये वाला डिस्टेंस कैसे निकालेंगे, ये HCP YCP निकालना है। सो HCP हम लोगों को दिया हुआ था, है कि नहीं। HCP हम लोगों ने निकाला है 4.589, ये 45 डिग्री है। तो ये YCP, ये वाला डिस्टेंस, ये हम लोग का ट्राइंगल से आ जाता है, ये YCP होगा। तो YCP कितना होगा, YCP साइन स्क्वायर 45 डिग्री इक्वल टू 4.589, दैट इज़ YCP कितना आ जाएगा आपका, YCP आ जाएगा आपका 6.489 मीटर। ओके, वैसे ही हमें ये डिस्टेंस चाहिए, ये वाला डिस्टेंस कैसे निकालेगा, ये बड़ा वाला ट्राइंगल लेना पड़ेगा। बड़ा वाला ट्राइंगल कैसे लेंगे, सो ये बड़ा वाला ट्राइंगल में ये वाला डिस्टेंस बी का वर्टिकल डिस्टेंस कितना है, 5 मीटर, क्वेश्चन में दिया हुआ था। सो एक और ट्राइंगल बनेगा जो इसको YB लिखते हैं अगर, तो ये 5 मीटर्स है और ये 45 डिग्री है। अगेन तो सेम कॉन्सेप्ट, YB साइन ऑफ 45 डिग्री विल बी व्हाट, 5 मीटर्स। सो YB विल बी व्हाट, YB will be 7.5 by sin 45, that is 7.071 मीटर। सिंपल है, ओके। बट अभी देखिए आपको चाहिए हिंज, कहाँ से चाहिए, एक और डायग्राम बनाता हूँ, ठीक है। ये पॉइंट A है, ये आपका फ्री सरफेस लेवल है। सो फोर्स एक लग रहा था इस साइड से CP पे, एक इस साइड से लग रहा था FB, अगर बोले इसको FCP बोलते हैं, HCP। ये वाला डिस्टेंस हम लोगों को मिला है, लेकिन हम लोग को मोमेंट तो एक अबाउट निकालना है। ये वाला डिस्टेंस कितना मिला, 6.8489। ये वाला डिस्टेंस कितना मिला, ये वाला डिस्टेंस आपको मिल गया है 7.7071। ओके, हमको चाहिए इतना डिस्टेंस, कितना, हमको ये वाला डिस्टेंस चाहिए, क्योंकि हम लोग तो मोमेंट अबाउट A निकालेंगे ना, और ये वाला डिस्टेंस चाहिए। सो बेसिकली क्या करना है, हम लोग को ये पार्ट इसमें से माइनस करना है, और ये पार्ट कितना होगा, समझ रहे हैं ना। देखिए फोर्स B का डिस्टेंस फ्रॉम पॉइंट A इज दिस मच, एंड वी नो दैट दिस डिस्टेंस इज 1.2. फोर्स बी का हम लोग को ये वाला चाहिए. तो ये वाला निकालने के लिए क्या करना पड़ेगा, आपको ये डिस्टेंस माइनस करना पड़ेगा इसमें से, ये टोटल में से ये डिस्टेंस माइनस करना पड़ेगा. अगर हम इसको सी पी पकड़ते हैं, इसको बी पॉइंट पकड़ते हैं, तो ये वाला डिस्टेंस कितना होगा, ये वाला डिस्टेंस होगा 7.071 माइनस 6.489. दैट कम्स आउट टू बी हाउ मच, 0.582. सो अगर इसको पी पॉइंट बोल, हाँ ओके, दिस इज़ द मीटर. सो फिर से बनाते हैं डायग्राम. बार बार डायग्राम इसलिए बना रहे हैं ताकि क्लियरिटी सही रहे. ए पॉइंट के अबाउट फोर्स बी जो लग रहा है एफ बी, इट इज़ ए पॉइंट के अबाउट कितना डिस्टेंस है, 1.2 मीटर. ठीक है. फोर्स जो सेंटर ऑफ प्रेशर जो हम लोगों ने निकाला था ये लग रहा है आपका, ये हमको पता नहीं है लेकिन हमको ये पता चल गया कि ये डिस्टेंस अभी कितना है, 0.582 मीटर्स. तो ये डिस्टेंस कितना हो जाएगा, 1.2 माइनस 0.582 meters, which will give us how much, which will give us 0.618 meters. Okay, so अभी just summation of moment about a equal to 0 करिए. so क्या होगा, एफ बी और ये वाला मोशन को हम अगर पॉजिटिव पकड़ते हैं तो एफ बी इंटू 1.2 माइनस एफ इंटू 0.618 इक्वल टू 0. एफ़ का वैल्यू पुट करिए, एफ बी का वैल्यू आपको क्वेश्चन में निकालने दिया है. तो एफ़ का वैल्यू हम लोगों ने कैलकुलेट कितना किया था, हम लोगों ने कैलकुलेट किया था 269343. सो वही पुट करना है, 269343 इंटू हाउ मच, इंटू 0.618. सो फोर्स एट बी कितना लगाना पड़ेगा, गेट को खोलने के लिए लगाना पड़ेगा 138,708. Mind you, I will tell you every time that these are the preliminary questions for you to understand the things, but there are a whole lot of questions that can be made. इस चैप्टर से नंबर ऑफ क्वेश्चन मेक किया जा सकता है, बनाया जा सकता है. सो I would encourage you to solve yourself some more questions on inclined and vertical planes as well as horizontal planes, ताकि कॉन्फिडेंस बिल्डअप हो जाए और रट्टा नहीं मानना है. ओके, आई विल मूव टुवर्ड्स forces, hydrostatic forces. We'll move towards hydrostatic forces, static forces on curved surface. अभी plane surface था, right? Curved surfaces. ठीक है, अभी तक plane surface देख रहे थे, अब curved surface देखेंगे. So thank you.